you for joining me on another episode of Next in Queue, the podcast about contact center and customer experience professionals. My name is Rob Dwyer, and I'm really excited today to be joined by a guy who, we've been working on getting this together for a while now. One of our biggest fans has been pushing us to get together and do this together. David Powers, welcome to the show. How are you?
Hey, I'm fantastic, man. I'm pretty caffeinated, ready to go. Shout out to our biggest fan, Mr. Drew.
Yeah, this one is for you. He actually introduced us on LinkedIn. That's how I found out about you. I found out about what you're doing, your podcast, Caffeinated CX, which we'll talk about after a bit. And he... I don't want to say begged, because that's not Drew's style, but he very much was like, please, if you guys could do a show together, that would be awesome.
Yeah. Thanks, Drew.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Good guy. Great guy.
Yeah, he is. So we've both got our coffee going, which is appropriate because, like I said, you have a podcast that we'll talk about in a bit that's called Caffeinated CX. So I know you're a big fan of the coffee. So we got that going. You lead a contact center in, I believe, the Los Angeles area for Reuter Hero. Is that correct?
That's right.
But you're not from LA.
No.
You're from about as far away from LA as you can get without leaving the United States. So let's talk about where you grew up. Where are you originally from?
All right. So I'm from Maine, the great state of Maine, vacation land of pine trees and lobsters. So was born and raised there, and worked in a few call centers up there, but mostly I was part of the Maine punk scene. So, and that was interesting because you don't equate Maine with mohawks and spikes and chains and stuff like that, but we did exist. So
yeah, I'm not sure I equate Maine with a whole heck of a lot, to be quite honest, other than it's just kind of up there.
Yeah, that's fair.
And lobster, right?
Yeah.
Everybody knows Maine lobster. So one of your passions, and I know it's still a passion of yours because I see it on social media, and I know you bring this into a lot of the things that you talk about, but that is your passion for music, and in particular punk rock. So let's talk about that. What was the first band that you listened to that you were like, oh, this is it, this is my scene?
All right. So it was the first punk band that really got me into the scene was Black Flag. And I got into Black Flag through Nirvana. So
okay.
I read an article where it was talking about how Kurt Cobain sold all of his Black Flag records to attend some concert, right? I was like, oh, Black Flag, I'll check them out. So I picked up the cassette version of Damaged. And from there, I was like, oh, this is like stripped down Nirvana on steroids. So, and it just went from there. And like maybe a year after I got into it, got a mohawk, started getting into other bands like the Misfits, the Pistols, everything else, and then met other people that were into the same stuff, weirdly, and then started a band, toured around. We had Basement Tour in 1999, and yep, I'm old. And then it just went from there. And honestly, it's whenever I feel the need to get motivated, or I'm sitting down to write something or come up with a training manual, or my agents, it's usually Black Flag or something similar. So it's still with me.
So what did you play in the band? Were you singing, vocalist, or were you playing an instrument?
I was the vocalist.
Yeah.
We had a side project where I played bass, but I was never really good at it. So, but yeah.
So growing up, my two best friends One played guitar, the other one plays bass. They both still do. The other one plays bass. And so when we were in middle school, we started a band, and I had zero musical talent whatsoever. So obviously I was the singer. That's how that happened.
Yep. Usually how that
And
goes.
yeah, usually how it goes. Unfortunately, for everyone involved, I am tone deaf and I can't sing. But we did play some great 80s hair band covers. This was before grunge hit the scene. This was still, Motley Crue, Def Leppard, Queensryche era. And my one and only gig, we opened, and I grew up in a small town in Kansas, and we had the Armory, and so we had an Oktoberfest, and we opened for a polka band.
Hmm. That's actually
And
pretty cool.
yeah, it was. But that was the end of my music career, and those two guys both are actually still involved. The
Hmm.
lead up music to this podcast is my best friend Travis's band. He plays bass in that band, Big Red Horse. And Jason actually runs a studio and is also still playing actively, but very much in the music scene. So
That's awesome.
yeah, you guys would get along for sure. I
Hmm.
would be the outcast though, because I can't sing. That's just all there is to it.
Dude, all I did was scream. So
It's
I can't.
probably what I should have done. We should have been doing punk.
If you can't sing, scream. So I can't carry it. I can't carry a note. So I can scream my head off and still have a voice left after. So, which is cool, but it's a strange skill to have.
Yeah, for sure. You have another passion besides contact centers and coffee, and that is tabletop role playing type of games. So
Yep.
tell us a little bit about that. How did you get into that?
Oh, I got into that with first edition Dungeons and Dragons when I was a kid. My uncle had left his books there, and I'm talking about like the really old ones from like the early 80s, late 70s there at my grandparents' house. And so I thumb through them every now and then and be like, oh, wow, these are cool. And then in middle school, high school, I got into it. So like there's a bunch of us like main punks playing D&D. So that was pretty cool. And then I got into it a little bit later in my mid 20s with a whole different group. And that's when like third edition Dungeons and Dragons came out. So it was a lot more complicated, a lot more numbers crunching. Taught me how to use spreadsheets. So that was cool. And then I've made my own games through it too. Like I have a sci-fi one and then another fantasy one. And actually 2 days ago, I picked up Pathfinder second edition, the core rulebook. But now I'm just don't have anyone to play with. So that's kind of sad. So I just sit there by myself reading the books, imagining what could be.
Well, you got to find some people to play with locally for sure. I think that it's really interesting, some of the skills that people don't think about. And it doesn't matter what the hobby is, right? So it could be role-playing games. There are lots of gamers that are playing video games, whether it's console or on the computer, or maybe you're like me and you're doing some Lego stuff, right? Whatever that hobby is, whatever that passion is, there can be some skills that you take out of that are then transferable to other things. And I think that
Mhm.
the whole number crunching in the spreadsheets, like that's fascinating to me.
Yep. Yep. That's what got me started in like management and stuff was, yeah, I could use Excel. Yeah, I can use this. Hey, I've done this. And then World of Warcraft was another big thing of mine too. I started playing in vanilla, so when it came out, all the way through the third expansion, I think. But because of that, because I was a guild leader and we had guild chat and everything, when the pandemic hit, I just used those skills when we pivoted to a hybrid center, right? And just like, yeah, okay, we can do this. This is easy. We'll just use Discord. And we
Nice.
it was seamless. And then, which I got maybe irrationally mad at people saying you can't have a culture if you're virtual. And it's just like, no, people have been doing this since like at least 2004. So,
Yeah.
and quite well. People were able to organize like 80 people to go raid a dungeon that took 8 hours,
Yeah,
all
absolutely.
through text and like voice chat. It's possible. And well, we did it. So
Yeah, it's so I think people who are not into gaming online don't necessarily understand the culture and the bonds that you can actually form with people. So, number one, right, there's usually an alternate method of communication outside of the game, right? So, you're using something like Discord where you can chat with people even when you're not actively engaged with the game. You can have conversations, you get to know people. There is absolutely a culture to it.
yeah.
And at one point, I actually, there was a mobile game that I played called Dominations, which was kind of a history based military kind of strategy city builder type of game. Um, and I actually flew to Orlando to meet a couple of guys that I played with that, we had only talked in chat, but one of them happened to be going there for a conference. And I was like, hey, let's go. Right. And so we
Yeah.
met up because we had built that relationship online. And then, we were able to continue that in the real world. Right. And go have a beer together, have dinner, hang out, and you learn so much about people that way.
Oh, definitely, definitely. I have a buddy who he and his wife met on EverQuest,
Wow.
and it was one of those weird things because at the time, like everyone made fun of that, you know, stuff like that. But they've been married for like 10 years now, so and they're still going strong. They're like one of the only couples I know from 10 years ago, other than like my wife and I, who are still together. So it's that bond, and
Yeah.
it was just made over Ventrilo and Guild Chat. So and probably a
That's
lot of
pretty
private
awesome.
messages.
Yeah. Right. Right. Well, let's talk about how you got into the contact center business.
Yeah.
What were you doing with the first contact center, and why did you choose to go into that?
All right. So my first contact center I worked in, I was 17 years old, still in high school. A new center had just opened up in Brunswick, Maine. And I was like, oh, cool. I need a job. So at the time, I was doing like weekend custodian work at a hospital my dad worked in the maintenance department of. So,
Okay.
and I was like, this ain't for me. I'm getting tired of like reaching into a bag, getting my glove covered in blood and throwing it in a biohazard bag. So
Yeah, that's
I,
awful.
yep, I applied for the job at the call center, and it was for retention of dial-up internet services.
All
And
right.
this was at the time that broadband was just hitting the scene, so cable and DSL. So it wasn't an easy job. So
Right, right. Please stay with this old slow internet connection. Don't get the new fast one. That's what you're trying to do, right?
yeah, it was exactly. It was like I can give you a month free, huh? Huh? While you get your DSL set up. So that was just weird. But I went from there. I worked my way up because I was part of the super savers, which means I had a retention rate of 20% or more. Average was about 8%. So that was neat. And then eventually that dial-up company got its own DSL, but we found out on the floor that that DSL company we were going through went bankrupt. like, because we had to call tech support for a customer, and then we were on hold for an hour, and then someone picked up and was like, yeah, it's our last day here, man. So
Wow.
so shortly after that, that dial-up company went out as well. So then I stayed in call centers ever since then, bounced around. So other than a minor stint as a assistant manager at Dunkin' Donuts, and then I went straight back into the call center scene.
So I think that I think a lot of people can relate into just kind of getting into a call center because it seemed like a better option than whatever else that they had sitting in front of them. Well, let's talk about geography, because obviously I know a lot of people that have moved around. I know a lot of people that just kind of stick where they've been. I've lived in the Midwest my entire life, but a lot of different places in the Midwest. But how did you end up in LA, and what were the stops along the way, if there were any? Because that's a big change.
That is. And it's because of my wife. Basically, what happened, I met my wife in Maine. She was there from LA. We just ended up getting together, got an apartment together, and then she got a call one night, and her uncle had Lou Gehrig's disease, right? So, which is terrible.
Yeah, for sure.
So, because it wasn't looking good, she wanted to, at least be around her family and him before he passed. So we just packed up. Took us about a week to get everything situated, and we drove.
Wow.
At the time, she was about 7 months pregnant, so we didn't want to fly or anything, just in case. So, but we drove, and it took us 4 days to get from Maine to California, because we stopped like twice. So
Wow. She's 7 months pregnant and you weren't doing bathroom stops like every couple of hours. You just
and just switching off. So I think we
wow.
took a nap in a parking lot one night, but other than that, yeah, we drove straight.
That
It
is
was cool.
insane.
Yeah.
But I'm sure it was great for her to be able to get near family and have that time, because you're never going to get that back, right? I mean,
No, definitely. And her family, most of them don't speak English. They all speak Armenian only. So I was like the odd one out during most of it, because even now I can say like 3 words in Armenian. It's one of the toughest languages to learn, in my opinion, only because it's not based on Latin or Germanic, and
right.
it's just its own thing. But it was a good experience, just meeting them and being welcomed in, even though I'm just a white guy and who doesn't know anything about the culture. But it was we decided to stay after he passed. So the plan was to move back to Maine and everything else, and then no, we'll stay here. So
Awesome. So then did you start at Reuter Hero then, or was there something else along the way? What happened there?
So the first job I got in California was an appointment center job for a CPA, and the lead lists that they gave the guy for me to call this was like right when the recession was going on too. So half of the lead list, the companies had just gone out of business. So because they were all small companies.
Right.
So for like the third lead list of basically nothing, he just shut down shop. So it was just like, yeah, that's understandable. There ain't no businesses here. And then other than the big ones that have their own in-house CPAs and stuff.
Right.
So after that, I went to a tax resolution company, which I was just doing. I started off scanning stuff and putting it in files and stuff like that. Then I moved up to actually preparing like tax resolution documents like the 433A, 433F, stuff like that. And then I moved up from there to actually being able to pretend I was an attorney calling the IRS. So, which is probably illegal, but that place isn't around anymore. So because they got caught. But anyway, after that, I started working for Reuter Hero Plumbing. So
I think the one thing about contact center business that always fascinates me is if you move around enough, whether it's insourced or outsourced, it doesn't matter. You learn a lot of different things about a lot of different types of businesses. Like there are very specific tax documents that you probably have a very intimate knowledge of that the average person is like, I don't even know what that is.
Yeah, it's, I could still put people into a non-collectible status if I wanted to. This forms energy. So, which, comes in handy.
Yeah, that's a future side gig for you, maybe,
Yep.
if you ever need it. Yeah, that's awesome. So, all right, so now you're at Reuter Hero. Now, is that contact center just for that region? Is it LA specific, or is it wider than that?
Right. When I started, all the way back in like 2012, it was like LA, Orange County here in California, and San Jose. We also had a branch out in Arizona and one in Nevada.
Okay.
So, but since then, we now cover most of California and Phoenix, Arizona. So the business has, I want to say, more than, yeah, it's about 10x of where it was back when I started.
Wow.
So, yeah. And I just
Yeah.
started as a evening CSR. So, because I just needed the job, like unemployment wasn't cutting it. So, and then, you do good in the place and you raise up. So,
Yeah, I think a lot of us have had that experience of working nights, getting on the phones, because it's kind of where you typically start. I mean, you and I kind of had this conversation on LinkedIn not all that long ago,
mhm,
that often in a contact center business, when you first get started, you get the worst shift, which is the evening shift. There's also overnights, but there's typically either there's not a need for it because the company just doesn't answer the phones overnight, or there's only a couple of people that are needed because the volume is so low. And so it's that evening shift, like to 10 to 11 to midnight, somewhere in there, that you get stuck on, right? That's where you got to work your way up from. And that is also a big reason why a lot of people don't stick in this industry, I think, because it's not the most desirable shift and you have to stick in order often to get that day shift that you want.
Yep. So, how I got onto the day shift was someone on the day shift called out. So they called me in, and during the day shift, I took the most amount of calls and booked the most amount of appointments during that shift. So I was able to leverage that into changing my schedule. So that was cool because at the time I was taking public transportation and, taking the bus home at 10 o'clock at night in LA. It's not the most ideal situation. No. So, especially since the closest bus stop was about almost a mile walk from where the office was. So,
yeah, this is a thing that I think call centers deal with, that I think the shift, if call centers have made a shift to work from home, it's a huge advantage because when you are in a city, you certainly will have employees that are using public transportation. I know that we experience the same thing here in St. Louis. And it's not just the safety piece, but depending on the city that you're in, there's a timing issue.
Yep.
Or for St. Louis, like the last bus is at 10. And if you don't get that bus, no bus.
Yep.
And if your shift is to 11, that becomes a big problem.
Yeah.
When you change this to a work from home model where people aren't having to come into a physical center, now all of a sudden you eliminate that barrier. That's a barrier to finding good people that work from home has eliminated.
Yeah. No, 100%. In here in LA, traffic is usually terrible. So a lot of people were late to work. You could leave your house an hour before your shift, and with no traffic, you could live 20 minutes away. But it's going to take you an hour 15 to get here. So you're automatically late for your shift. Since going the hybrid model where majority of our people are from home, that's eliminated tardiness pretty much across the board. It also eliminated a lot of other things like wear and tear on their car. My car broke down. It made people happier because they don't have that commute. Commutes here are stressful. Parking here is stressful. And like our office shares the parking lot with a couple other businesses. And one of them has a lot of foot traffic, especially around the holidays and like Fridays, for example. So if you weren't here first thing in the morning, you're on the street parking, because even though we have signs up saying, hey, this is only for this place, oh, the customers parked there too. And what are you going to say? So like, no, customer, go away. No, I can't do that.
Right. But that's not going to happen.
Like, no, but like there were times when I had to circle around the building like 4 times before I even found a space that I had to badly parallel park into. So, because in Maine, you don't parallel park, and that's where I learned how to drive. So, like, parallel parked once in Maine, and that was during my driving test. So, that was it. But
that's
no,
funny.
But the whole work from home model, it opened up so many new doors, and not just for us, but for everyone. And which is why it's disconcerting to see this whole everyone return to the office thing. And especially when the news came out, the mayor of New York City came out and was like, all right, guys, that's enough. Everyone back to the office. Like, and on one hand, I get it, because, you know, a lot of local businesses require that foot traffic. But for the workers themselves, that's awful. And that's one of the reasons for what we're seeing now in the workforce.
Yeah, I think it is going to be fascinating. So, right, this is a great topic. From a commercial real estate and from the businesses who rely on the traffic from people that work in a city, right? Whether you're the local cafe owner or a dry cleaner or whatever the case may be, work from home has really impacted those things in a very negative way. So there are a lot of positives for the people that are able to work from home, because I don't have a commute anymore. You know, I was having a conversation with my brother earlier this week, and I'm like, I finally had to fill up my car with gas because it had been a month since I'd filled it up, because I don't drive very often. And my what I wear has changed, right? I have a closet full of dress shoes that are so lonely and dusty right now. They are just lonely and dusty. I haven't been to the dry cleaners for I don't know how long, right? So those things definitely, those businesses are feeling a negative impact. The question is, how are we going to balance that? Right. And what businesses can afford to say, I can ask my workers to come back, and what businesses are going to say that and automatically they're going to lose their workforce?
Right. It really depends on the culture of that business. And, you know, depending on the size of the workforce, that was loud. depending on the size of that workforce, maybe a hybrid model where half the shift comes in this day, the other half comes in the next day. So there's still that foot traffic. Because right now it's like it's the white collar jobs that are available to work from home. The blue collar jobs, not so much. So
Right.
at all. Unless you want to classify call center agents as blue collar, which I think you can make an argument for, but yeah, no, it work from home definitely benefits white collar work.
Yeah, for
Blue
sure.
collar is kind of in the same place they always were, right?
Yeah, your service techs don't get to work from home,
No,
right? They're
no,
still going into people's homes and dealing with their HVAC or dealing with their plumbing issues, just like they always have. Like nothing's changed other than, right, they're wearing masks and they're maybe following some different protocols, but they're still doing their job the same way they always have.
100%. So we were able to automate some things like signing of signatures and things like that, so they don't have to go, you know, in the home if all the work is outside, but still a lot of the work is indoors.
Mm-hmm.
Same with restaurant workers, same with grocery
Right.
stores, right? So it's the whole work from home thing is an argument for it. As I said, it only benefits white collar workers. So, and I mean, by default. So, and then for them, yeah, if it makes more sense to work from home, work from home. But that's why I like the hybrid model a lot better than straight work from home, right? Because you're always going to have those
Mm-hmm.
people that either don't have the correct internet speed to effectively do their job, so they're going to have to come to the office. During the entire pandemic, I had about 5 people that just couldn't work from home, either from like a sound place, like because of they had kids, pets, everything else that they just didn't have a quiet spot in their house. I have a 4 year
Yeah.
old, so I know exactly how that is. And then we had the remaining that were able to just pick it up. Like the pivot time was a day, right? So,
Yeah.
hey, we're going to start this tomorrow. Cool. Send me screenshots of your stuff tonight and then go from there. But because I had those 5 people in the office, I continued to come into the office too, even though I could do a lot of what I do at home. But because I had those 5 people, I felt obligated to come in. And
Yeah.
near us, there's a few restaurants, coffee shop, a couple 7-Elevens, because this is LA, there's a 7-Eleven on every corner, or the equivalent. And so we were able to visit those places every day too. Now that we're more hybrid, it's like 50-50. People are always coming back in with Subway sandwiches and everything else. But during the early days of the pandemic, like every time I'd walk past either the coffee shop or the little Subway that's on the corner, completely empty.
Yeah.
So there'd be like one crew member in each one, and being alone in a restaurant in LA is again not ideal. So
Yeah, it was certainly, I think I mean, for all of us, right? It was the first time we had experienced something to the kind of scale. And it was a little surreal early on when even you might just go out and drive somewhere and you go, there are no cars
yeah,
anywhere. Like it
yeah,
was,
that was odd. So
yeah,
my commute went from at the time 15 minutes to 5 minutes. So same distance, and just like I am the only car on the road right now. And then you coupled that with the curfews we had as well in LA, especially during the summer of 2020. And it was just at 10 o'clock, no traffic, and we lived on a busy street. So
wow.
it was just like, huh. So it got harder to sleep because you're used to those sounds. Um,
Right.
it's like having the fan on in the background when you're sleeping. Only way you can fall asleep. To us, it was traffic, right?
Yeah.
So, and there was none. It was just bizarre. And now traffic is back full force. So we're able to see.
Yeah, certainly seems like things are getting a little bit back to normal, but I think we're certainly well aware that within the contact center business, there is still this push and pull, and I think a lot of companies are trying to figure out how they're going to navigate this, and I think that's going to be different for everyone, right? You've got to look at your own situation and how you're going to manage that and what's best for your organization. I do want to talk about some other things that you've got going on. So you don't just lead the contact center, you also lead social media.
Yep.
And you have your own podcast called Caffeinated CX. We mentioned this earlier. So I want to hear about how that came to be.
Yeah. So definitely. So first, I took over the social media here because I didn't like the way it was. So I went to the CEO and I was like, "Guy, just give me the passwords. Let's do this." It's like how I became the trainer here. I didn't like how they were training people, so I was like, "I'm going to take this over now." So, and then I wrote a 60-page training manual, which I then whittled down to 30 pages. But for Caffeinated CX, it started off as just a video that I shared internally here at work for training. It was just like, hey, say this instead of that, stuff like that. So just really basic concepts. And I was like, you know what? More people have to hear this because everywhere I go, every place I call, they don't have these basics.
Yeah.
And it's like terrible. So I launched it on a whim. And I was like, oh, cool. Then I started getting traction on it. And so it went from there. But Caffeinated CX, the name came from a previous video series I did called Coffee with Dave, which was about mindset and a little bit of stoicism, just goal setting, stuff like that. So I was like, Coffee with Dave, oh, okay, coffee, caffeine, Caffeinated CX, awesome. So just a natural evolution from there. But it's I have a lot of fun doing it, and that's mostly why I do it. Is because it's fun, it's quick. The main goal of it is to change the contact center industry, though. So on some of them, I start talking about like how it is to be on the floor, how awful it can be. Not only are you being yelled at by customers, you're being yelled at by management, right? So because your KPIs were 2% less than what they should be, right? Because a lot of contact center managers are spreadsheet managers. And to an extent, they have to be. But to the other extent is your agents are humans and you work for them. So I think we lost that somewhere along the line. And maybe it was always that way in contact centers. So that's the stereotype anyway. It's like light gray walls and just drab cubicles. And, oh, is that a book on your desk? Nope. So things like that. So when I took over the contact center here, I took everything from other call centers I worked at, and I was like, okay, this was good. We're going to keep this. This was terrible. We're not going to do that. So we're not going to play bean bag pong. So, which was stupid. And then I took that and I took the philosophy, and that's what I focused the podcast on, is we need to make things better for call center agents, which will then automatically transform the customer's experience. So I go into a lot of EX equals CX squared is an equation that I kick around a lot. So employee experience equals that customer experience, just doubly so. So if you treat your employees good, if you treat your agents like the human beings they are, they're going to therefore take care of the customers. And then the customers will take care of the business will take care of the employee, and it just becomes this awesome circle of good. So
Yeah, for sure. I think we both know that nobody measures things like contact centers measure things. Like, we have so many KPIs, and some of them are really important and really useful, and some of them are these ancillary numbers that contact center leaders can get caught up in,
Mm-hmm.
and we can lose sight of, these are people that I'm leading to do a great job and to provide a great experience. And instead, they start focusing in on a number, and they start trying to coach to a number. And
Yeah.
that's never successful. I mean, it can be successful in the short term, but you encourage behaviors that aren't desirable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I think average handle time is a great example. Like, that's one that every contact center, average handle time, get your handle time down, right?
Yeah. Yeah. That's a great one. That is, to me, one of the dumbest things to incentivize. Only because you're forcing people to rush the calls. All the other stuff that needs to be done on the call suffers for that. But hey, you got them off the phone in 3 minutes. Kudos.
Right. I think it's one of those that crafty agents will figure out ways to get their handle time down. And that usually involves not doing the job. That's what it usually involves.
Exactly.
And so we have to walk that fine line of being efficient, because there is a benefit to efficiency. And I tell people, like, I don't care how awesome you are. Nobody wakes up in the morning and goes, gee, I can't wait to talk to somebody at a call center for 20 minutes today. Like, that's not a thing.
No. And honestly, there's 2 reasons for 20-minute calls, and I boiled it down. Either you have really bad call control, or you have really good call control and your break is coming up. So
again, right there, right? I don't think that people give contact center agents enough credit to what motivates them sometimes. And sometimes it's just that. It's like, you know what? I don't want to get another call 2 minutes before my break because I want to take my break, right? Maybe I need to go to the bathroom, or I need more coffee, or I'm hungry, or I just, I'm not feeling it today.
Yeah.
And if we're managing the wrong things, that will absolutely happen.
Yeah. No, I worked at one place, and it was this bad. Breaks were monitored down to the second, right? So you got 2 10-minute breaks and a half-hour meal break, which is standard, right?
Yeah.
But bathroom breaks were taken out of your regular breaks. So if you had to go run to the bathroom, the 3 minutes that it took you to get there, the 3 minutes, because it was down a long hallway, 3 minutes took you to get back, you had a 4-minute break left, right? So that was bad.
Yeah.
And then that led to an incident where they were on a point system. So one person was on his last quarter of a point, and he had to really use the restroom. So, but he only had a couple minutes of his break left, like total for the day. So he had a water bottle and just decided to go. And because if he had left his station, he would
probably lose his job. Yeah.
Yeah. So unfortunately, it was like 9 o'clock, 9:30 at night. So there wasn't much activity going on, and it was loud. So he lost his job anyway, but it was like, damned if you do, damned if you don't. Because it's either you're going to lose your job from losing that last, quarter of a point, and then getting fired through automation, because that's what they used, or, maybe no one will say anything, or I can just, go in my pants. So just bad stuff. And tracking every little thing is, one, you can't build a culture off of something like that, or at least a good one, right? Like, yeah, you have to keep certain KPIs. You do, right? Maybe allowing people to go to the bathroom, maybe that shouldn't be included in your KPIs. So, like if I
Yeah,
had been anything other than a shift supervisor, then I would have put him on coaching so he could have gone to the bathroom. So,
right. It's just one of those things, right? Just recognizing that these are people
mhm,
and they have lives and they're here so that they can support their, families and whatnot. And being mindful of that and treating them like they're actually people.
yeah, no,
I want to
100%.
switch gears a little bit and I
Mhm.
want to talk a little bit about technology
Yeah,
because you and I right now are coming from a little bit different world. So you work at an in-sourced contact center. I've spent my entire career at outsourced contact centers, and there are some differences between those.
mhm,
But there's also, I think, in your very specific industry, there are some differences in technology that I think have interesting impacts on customer experience, but also some interesting impacts in other areas. So correct me if I'm wrong, but you guys use Service Titan. Is that right?
that's right. Yeah,
So tell us, for those that are not aware of this, tell us a little bit about that platform and what all it does.
yeah, definitely. So Service Titan is, we were like the first people on them. So our CEO actually here at Reuter Hero is one of the first investors in the platform as well, and we were able to help craft it. So us and Service Titan are like, that. But it's an all-in-one CRM. Like everything that a lot of other call centers have partitioned into different systems with different logins on different platforms. Service Titan just does it, right? So I'm a little spoiled when it comes to that stuff. So it has like, ROI tracking. It has, you click on a box when the call comes in and it has all the customers' information if they've ever used you before. Everything is on pretty much 1 or 2 pages. So, and with that, comparing it to a lot of the things I saw at Customer Contact Week back in December in Vegas, I was like, oh, we have it really good. So they're using 5 different programs. I remember those days, but it's an
Yeah.
all-in-one, and it's powerful and it's mostly tailored to the trade. So plumbing, construction, roofing, everything like that. So it's great, actually.
Yeah, it's a fascinating platform, right? So you've got your telephony, it's multi-channel. I've got email, I've got my chat. You can channel switch. I've got my CRM. It's connected to the technicians out in the field,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
So everything is I think from a CX standpoint in that industry, man, it can really deliver.
yeah.
The
So,
one challenge that I see with this, and I'm looking at this from an outsourcer's viewpoint,
mhm,
is because everything is in one platform, it's really hard to look at, hey, could we outsource maybe just a little bit of our business to deal with overflow or
mhm,
seasonality or anything like that? Because I, I mean, you got to be in that platform to deliver that same experience.
right, right. That is one of the drawbacks of it. Um, and then if you do, let's say, want to outsource it so they have, access to customer information and everything, well, you have to create a new login for them. They're all on the same account. So there's ways of some of it's not ideal.
Yeah.
So I mean, we do outsource some of the overflow that we get to a answering service, just a call
Okay.
center out in the
Mm-hmm.
Midwest. So if all the agents are busy on the phone, it kicks over to them. But I agree. The CX is not ideal with that because all they do is take down their information and email it back to the contact center. So,
Right.
which then creates
Yeah.
an outbound call.
It makes this interesting. I think it was there was an article that was posted. I think it was Dan Gingus that posted something earlier this week. Yesterday, I'm pretty sure. But he was talking about, right, kind of next level CX, and a lot of it was that I was reading into it was about retail. But it made me think about the vertical integration and how that changes a lot of the customer experience, right? The more I can control, the better I can deliver on customer experience.
Mhm.
But there is a trade-off to that. And the trade-off is now I have to, if I want to keep that experience, like I have to control all of that. Like, okay,
Mhm.
I can and I want to, but then I have to. Like that
Yeah.
there aren't a lot of great options if I want to say, well, I don't want to deal with this part of the business. I'll let somebody else do that. It doesn't work
Yeah.
great.
No, it definitely would be a monumental challenge. So it would be a fun challenge, but monumental. So
Yeah. Yeah, I think this is an interesting topic that CX professionals and technology will have to work to solve. I mean, I even think about, right, just shipping, and this was the part that I was thinking about. Like, if you're a retailer, you don't control the last mile when it comes to shipping. Like, if FedEx or UPS loses your package, they lost your package. Like, what do you?
yep. And honestly, a lot of companies don't see that FedEx or Amazon or whatever losing their package. That affects the customer's experience and tarnishes your own reputation. So
Yeah.
because you have to take ownership of it from the time before they reach you to the time they get their product or service.
Mhm.
It's you can't just blame the other guy. So,
Right.
which is what a lot of companies do. It's like, oh
Yeah.
no, here's your tracking number. Go away. So,
Yeah, it's a huge challenge. And I think Amazon recognized that, which is why they have now their own
yep.
logistics and delivery, and why they have, warehouses all over the
Mhm.
country, and even, right, some of their retail locations that they have. All of that makes sense, but not, I mean, there aren't that many businesses that can do that. I mean, if you're the size
No.
of Amazon, great, you can do that.
Yep.
You can invest in that. If you're a mom and pop retailer,
No. No. There's no. The sad thing is, maybe not sad, but the thing is, customers are now expecting that Amazon level treatment, right? Even from the mom and pop retailers.
yeah,
So as customer expectations go up, and they're up,
they are.
it doesn't matter what industry you're in, it doesn't matter what you sell, they're expecting that same level of service, which for a lot of companies, especially the mom and pops, is impossible, right? At least right now.
Yeah. Well, and certainly at a similar competitive price point.
Right. Exactly.
You want it
So,
tomorrow? I can get it to you tomorrow. It's just going to be $30 extra.
right.
Well, why
Whereas
would I?
Amazon, it's free delivery, plus you're getting like $10 off of the product to begin with.
Yeah.
So it's like been the bane of many local gaming stores since they started selling gaming books. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, and I think, right, and that's where they started, right, in books. But we see this now, like there is almost nothing you can't get on Amazon, including your groceries, right? Since they
Hmm.
purchased Whole Foods, now you can get your groceries on Amazon, which, I think really benefited them right at the beginning of the
Yep.
pandemic, as a matter of
Yeah.
fact, right?
Oh no, definitely, definitely.
It's going to be the challenge, though, for other companies to meet. And how do we overcome those expectations or meet those expectations, one or the other, because that's what you
Right.
have to do. You either have to change the expectation or you have to
Mhm.
meet the expectation. There's no in
Right.
between.
Right. No, and what one way around that is to let them know what the expectations to expect are. Like, what, hey, here's what to expect. Yeah, it's not going to take that 1 day shipping, but you'll get it from this, and we'll be checking in on you every so often, as well as giving you a follow-up call or a follow-up email just to see how everything is. That's
Yeah.
one way around it, because Amazon doesn't really do that. So, right. In fact, I don't want to trash Amazon because Amazon's great and I have Prime, and we just got finished watching the Vox Machina cartoon. Um, but the other day I got a delivery, and instead of putting it in front of the front door and taking the picture and sending it to me or anything, all it said was put in a safe spot. That's what the delivery said. And it was just like, huh. So it was dark. So I went glance around the house and everything. And then um, my wife found the package like a couple days later, like around the side of the house. So it was weird. But I got
Safe
on with
spot,
her.
though.
Yeah, it was safe. It was still there, so that was good. But when I went to their chat, it was like, oh, okay, well, maybe they marked it as delivered as a mistake. Check back on Wednesday, right? So by Wednesday, still haven't found it. She hadn't found it until that night, but I couldn't reopen that chat to say no, it's still not here. So that was weird. So,
Mm,
but it was like a fluke, because every other time they're incredibly helpful, and they put a lot of other companies to shame with their customer service. So
yeah.
it was just a bizarre thing. Must have been a fluke.
Well, or things are changing there. I mean, I do think that um, there's a chance that Amazon starts to not be as appealing to people.
Mm,
But we'll see, right? I mean, I
yeah.
think Walmart changed the dynamic when they started moving into towns and they replaced, right, the local
Hmm.
hardware store and the local pharmacy and the local this and the local that, right? And
Yeah.
you saw that effect on small towns across America, what that
Hmm.
did. And I think Amazon is just the next extension of what Walmart has done, and they're just doing it in the digital age.
Yeah. No, 100% I agree with that. It's Walmart, when it first came in, decimated Main Street, right? So because they couldn't compete, everything at Walmart was cheaper. It was the same stuff for the most part, and mom and pop shops that had been there for 30 years just couldn't compete with it. Um, Going into a Walmart now is, well, you don't expect the greatest in customer service at a Walmart.
No.
Um, Hopefully that's changing with their new thing that they're launching. I haven't read much into it, but I guess they're changing their entire dynamic with the joy thing or whatever it is. But yeah, they replaced mom and pop style customer service, which for the most part was good um, and local, and they knew you, right?
Hmm.
To this big box store that, yeah, they had everything, but you had to find it yourself. So,
Yeah.
and they didn't know your name.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we certainly traded a lot of things for the sake of convenience. And I think as consumers, a lot of us made those decisions. And
Yeah. Oh, no, no,
now
that's
we're,
100% on us. Yeah.
yeah, now we're living with it.
Yep. No, we can't blame Walmart for shutting down Main Street when it was us that did the work. So,
Yeah.
yeah, that was not fair of me to say about Walmart, because it was 100% us. So,
Yeah, I mean, I read It Takes Two to Tango. They showed us that there was a different way, and we said, "Yep, I'll sign up for that."
Well, they gave us the key. We just opened the door. So,
Yeah,
and yeah. So, but with them, Target, other box stores, yeah, it's and now Amazon, who's kind of taking over those too. So,
hmm
I mean, 2 Amazon Fresh stores just opened up within 5 miles of me. So, the Amazon grocery stores. So,
yeah, they are. Amazon's taken over the world. There is no
yeah,
doubt about that. It'll just be interesting to see how that plays out long term.
yeah, I'm excited for them because as they do it, other people are going to compete with their level of customer service, right? And especially if you're in a saturated market, the customer service, the customer experience is what's going to make the biggest difference. Because like all the grocery stores sell bread, right?
Right.
So you can go to any of them, but you're going to go to the one where you're treated as a human being. And if you don't know where something is, the store employee is going to lead you over there, instead of saying, I think it's on aisle 6. Good luck, So, but that's going to be cool to see if we see that customer service competition. So,
Yeah. I wonder how many are just going to rely on having a better app and less
yeah,
people.
yeah. I'm hoping that's not the case, but I could definitely see that happening because that's in the long run cheaper. So,
Yeah. Yeah, it is.
yeah.
Well, listen, Dave, it's been fantastic talking to you. I know this has been long overdue, and I'm really excited that we got to have a chat. Drew, you're welcome.